ここからは英語で進めさせていただければと思います。So from now on, we would like to proceed in English. And for this panel, we have two distinguished panelists. And by the way, I'm a moderator, Makoto Shibata, head of FINOLAB. So we're organizing this event here in FINOLAB. FINOLAB is a fintech hub where we have like 50 startups and 30 corporate members and trying to pursue open innovation, not open finance. But we particularly discuss a lot about open finance these days. And today, Luciana has already presented but if you can explain a little bit about the actual role you play in Nubank.
So I am the General Manager for Open Finance in Nubank. I've been leading this agenda since the very, very beginning. Our first part specifically it was to influence the regulation to make sure that we had the right standards developing in open finance in Brazil. And now that we launched it, it's all about delivering value back to the customers. It's a team pretty much of software engineers, product managers, business analysts, a lot of interactions with customers and internally in the data usage.
Thank you very much. And Taki-san, since you have different hats, maybe you can explain a bit why you are here as head of Japan Association for Financial APIs.
Good. So first of all, Happy New Year. It's so great to see some familiar faces. So I'm Toshio Taki. I represent two hats. One is a representative director of what I call the Japan FAPI, which is a association for financial APIs in Japan, which is known as 電子決済等代行事業者協会代表理事 in Japanese. So I've been doing this for like 7 years, so I can now say without kamanai. And the other one is as one of the large, what used to be called as AISP and now maybe FISP company in the Eurozone terms. I also represent Money Forward, which is accounting and personal finance management tool. We have connections with more than 120 banks, and contracts are not necessarily standardized. So these needs to be put into a much more common protocol in the future because if we do just reference-only APIs in Japan, that might still be okay. But if we were to move forward towards transactional APIs, I mean, probably the phase 2 is the current Japanese context in terms of Brazil. But if we wish to go ahead, we need to standardize many things. So today I'm mostly here to learn from the senpai in Brazil. And yes, so, it's so great to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And maybe we would like to start from the impressive growth of Nubank. As we saw in the presentation by Luciana, Nubank has grown over the years very impressively, not just in terms of size of the customer, but also in different areas, credit and also the deposit, and all the figures seems to be very impressive. So can you explain a little bit about how that impressive growth has achieved?
Perfect. So the Brazilian financial system, it was pretty much composed of 5 big banks when Nubank joined the system, 2013. A large concentration, above 70% of the markets constituting those specific banks. Nubank was the first challenger bank, if we may call it like that, the first digital bank as well. Before that, if you want to get a credit card, open an account, you had to go to a physical branch, fill all the paperwork, sign, and at times you were just going to be declined because the banks were not interested in any customers, right? In all the customers, but in specific customers. So even if you went to the branch, chances that you could be declined and you could get not an account, not even a credit card. In addition to that, there were fees being charged for you to open an account in most of the cases. And Nubank really came with a completely different proposal. Digital bank, you don't pay to have a credit card. Up to now, you pay to have a credit card in Brazil. The fee can get as high as $20 per month, sometimes even higher than that. And we came with a completely digital proposal, a free credit card delivered to your house, and an app that it's a self-service app. You can solve everything that you need in our app. The growth at first pretty much came in the word of mouth, simply like customers were applying to that, telling to their friends. And there was even, I forgot exactly the statistics, but a customer was referring many other customers. And that was how we grew pretty much. When I joined in 2018, there was no paid media, no efforts on that sense. The first 3 to, I would say, 5 million customers definitely came in from one referring Nubank to another. A big growth. Then we're creating our saving accounts, that it was the time that we could literally accept anyone. Because credit at times was limited to folks that we knew a bit of the historical credit that they had. It was a new bank, so it was very important that we have very strong credit underwriting models, because in case of any financial crisis, we need to be kind of covered for the risk of our customer base. And then when we launched the account product was the time that we could offer something to all the customers at Nubank. That was when we got to the 20 million customers. That was a bit before the pandemic, we reached that mark. And during the pandemic, being a digital established bank, it was something that really made us grow. 2020, about 20 million customers. December 2022, more than 60 million customers. Really, really a steep growth. People were getting some support from the government in terms of like an allowance or something like that. And they needed to have an account to receive that money. And that was when Nubank was available, established digital onboarding, and we really, really increased our customer base. And after that, there was Colombia and Mexico, the other 2 countries that we have our operations. And the customer base in Brazil continues to grow. So 1 every 2 Brazilians, adult population, now has an account at Nubank.
As like the fan of Nubank, I mean, I've been following Nubank's financials for like 2 or 3 years, and I don't want to be offensive, but I think Nubank spread it like COVID. Yes, the reproduction rate was so huge, and in a beneficial way.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it spread out just like COVID.
Yes. Yes, and profitability is definitely something that was important for us to change the game. It's not only a large fintech, even startup, if we still call Nubank as a startup, but it's also profitable. So it's been I believe a year now, I'm not sure exactly, but we turned positive in terms of net income, and the result is only growing. The slide that I showed to you, you can see the year-over-year growth being double digit consistently. So it was really, really important to get such a large customer base and to have the products to serve them, because the more products we launch, the more enthusiastic we get with the customer adoption, and they really wanting to hire an insurance, for instance. That is not something popular at Brazil overall, but people started to hire because they understood what an insurance product is. Something that it was very hard to get before that, because large contracts are very small letters, and people were just afraid that would be signing up something that they didn't know.
Right, and we see a lot of challenger banks came out in different parts of the world, but very few of them have grown their customer numbers and at the same time achieved the profitability. So I think Nubank has been quite impressive. But after a while, I think the traditional banks are also starting to offer digital capabilities. And do you see some competition coming, and do you see the gap between the traditional offerings and your offerings is narrowing, or you still have a very big advantage?
I would say that Nubank is always competing internally with ourselves, and technology definitely plays a big role here. Most of our products and services, they are developed in-house. It's very, very few cases that we outsource, that we find an external partner. In the case that I just mentioned, it's a capability we didn't have internally. So that gives us a lot of speed and innovation to move forward. The big banks, they do have digital brands. Itaú, one of the big banks in Brazil, I just showed the logo, the orange one. They launched a digital brand called iti. They were, I could say that there were a lot of traction and success in the beginning, but it's still like what I believe Nubank has a superior customer service UX. It's an app that it's very easy to use, onboarding it's easy. So it's still customers tend to prefer Nubank because they understand exactly what they are hiring. And the fact that we do not charge a fee to have a credit card or to have an account, that's definitely a differential. And we do have some very attractive yields and other products. So it continues to be a bank with a lot of potential ahead. There is other digital banks after Nubank as well, like PicPay, Mercado Pago, that it's the same company as Mercado Libre, quite popular e-commerce in Argentina. So those are digital banks that are also getting traction in Brazil, but still our customer service, I think that's the key ingredient for keeping attracting more and more customers.
Right, and also with the very rapid growth, I think you had to maintain the infrastructure to maintain the service for these growing customers. And how did you build your system to maintain this growth?
Perfect. So we do have internally a team that it's called Common Technology Platforms. This is a team of very senior engineers with specific knowledge, taking care of specific parts of our technology or of our tech stack. So people with AWS deep knowledge, if we consider Clojure is the programming language that we use at Nubank. It was developed by a company called Cognitec that we recently acquired. So we do have the experts in the language that we use inside Nubank as well. And this is a horizontal team providing the best that we consider that it has available in terms of tech stacks. And then we have the other views consuming all that it's available over there. But there is also some important components in making life at Nubank easy and really speed, innovations, and so forth. That it's the standards that we defined, right? So when we consider our programming language, it's Clojure. Everybody codes in Clojure. There is not a business unit or area that decides to use a different tooling or a different something. It's everything standardized. And that facilitates a lot when we want to move people around. You need to learn the context of a different area, but not the language, not the tools, because that's standard. So what you learned in one area is going to apply to all the other areas. So the technology speed is definitely a big win, and having like the most capable persons taking care of that gives us the reliability, stability to really focus on the customer. And there is a phrase that it's really important. It's hard to get a customer, but once you fail, you lose the customer. And that's our app being not available at a time, a customer not being able to process a transaction. So those are things that we look very carefully, and it's priority zero, that everything that we do, it's to deliver a transparent experience to customers.
Can you give a brief number of like how many engineers are in the company and where are they located? Are they in Brazil or worldwide?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly about the number of engineers we have. We do have about 7,000 employees, 50 nationalities. I would say that we should have definitely more than 1,000, probably very close to 3,000 software engineers at Nubank. We are a remote-friendly company, so we are pretty much working from home, and there is a lot of flexibility when it comes to geography. So the team taking care of our data services, they are located in Germany, because we consider that there is a big benefit in they being ahead of time. It's a talent pool. But we do have folks located in the US, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. Those are our 5 big hubs.
Great, thanks.
Right, and I assume you're benefiting from the cloud technology to scale your business.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And maybe we would like to turn to open banking issue. As you explained, the open banking arrived in Brazil quite recently, but can you explain a little bit about the role of your regulator, central bank, who introduced the open banking?
Perfect. So open banking is part of a long agenda of the central bank in Brazil. The first big step it was to establish a real-time payment system. It's called PIX, P-I-X. So that was the first big movement that proved that our central bank is capable to implement and scale large programs. Pretty much people are now allowed to perform money movements at any time of the day, 24/7, without paying any fee. Before that, some of the banks were actually charging customers to transfer money to one another, up to $2 to $3 at times. That was also differential for Nubank. We never charged for that type of service. And then PIX came along. Transformational thing changed completely the way people behave, in the sense of hard cash circulating in the economy has reduced drastically, more than 20% due to PIX implementation. Then the second big step, it's open finance. Open banking becoming open finance, right? And that's the piece that the president of the central bank mentioned as the piece that puts all together. Because with open finance, it's really when you open the economy, you can simply share your data between one bank to another. You can get better offers. There will be a moment where you can just compare different products at one app. Let's say that I want to hire a loan and those are the conditions that I can pay. I'm going to see a list of offers. Those are the products available. This is bank A, B, C, G. Choose whatever you want to hire from the app specifically. So that's the power of open economy, decreasing a bit the concentration that there was before in the big banks, opening to new players. That's all about competition. Again, interest rates, it's quite high in Brazil, so people can be at times overcharged if they could not pay a credit card bill, for instance, they hired a loan, so on and so forth. So open banking is literally, let's make a competitive system, let's put all together and enable solutions such as one app. There was the prototype that I presented from the central bank, where you have all your bank accounts, all your products, all your payment rails. There is also digital currency coming next in the central bank agenda. So it's an innovation agenda that it's developing over time, and I would say open finance is the second step towards everything that we want to accomplish.
Right. Thank you. And Taki-san, maybe Hiroshi-san already explained a little bit, but can you add a little bit on the difference of Brazilian case to the situation in Japan or any other parts of the world?
Yes. So Japan is a very unique country where API connection is done under a voluntary base contract. But due to many, maybe both political and the policy consensus, most of the banks had opened up APIs in this country, but as a result, some of the APIs are not delivered for free, and most of the APIs are referential only. So sharing the data is available, but transaction is not available in majority of the banks in terms of third-party access. And these are very unique traits because since a lot of these efforts occurred voluntarily, and for just the referential APIs, it is quite possible to do that with just heavy effort. But when it comes to transactional APIs, you need to state a lot more rules. I mean, we have to distinguish between $10 remittance and like $1,000 remittance and maybe $10,000 remittance, and what kind of authentication figures should be matched due to the level of risk. And of course, I mean, much of the banking industry, not just in Japan, but in many parts of the world, hasn't been designed to have the same standard for same kind of transactions. Everyone used to think differently, and maybe thinking differently was a good thing, but it's a nightmare for third-party access. So, I mean, looking from Japan, we feel a lot of envy towards countries with a very strong political leadership to at least normalize and at least standardize some of the procedures. But of course, I mean, we have to fight with the cards that we have. So recently, I mean, Hirose-san and I and some of the members at that Japanese FAPI are kind of struggling to create a study group that will show at least the guidelines and frameworks of what should be done. And since Brazil has learned from the UK, Europe, and maybe America, we can now learn from Brazil and UK and America and the Eurozone. I mean, that's at least the last mover advantage that we have as like a standard setter. And of course, I mean, there are some sweet spots like low value transactions and charging money to electronic money. I mean, these kind of parts are already becoming one of the most rapidly occurring transactions even for the banking industry. And maybe with some spice included, which might be in the far future, most of the central banks will introduce some kind of digital currencies. I mean, and the banks and third parties will need to access those kind of infrastructure in some part. And the very same discussion will occur in that near or far future. So I think we are kind of modeling through those kind of discussions materials right now. But at least it's so good to have some teacher to learn from abroad. Yeah.
But just to make sure not everything is perfect in Open Finance Brazil. There are a lot of issues with data quality, so institutions interpreting the specifications in different ways. Also, in terms of technical capacity, right? Depending on the number of requests we file to an institution, we get a lot of error messages. So there is still a lot to do. Specifications are there. It's great that the central bank is that active in pushing all the institutions to join things such as Open Finance and PIX. But there is still some time for the system to mature. People really understand what should be sent. The requests have a higher limit or more intelligent way to perform that. So there is still a way to maturity in Brazil, I would say.
I would just like to add one background, which is very different from Brazil, UK, and Japan, where we have a lot of over competition in the Japanese banking industry. I mean, at least that's a real large difference. Mm-hmm. And I hope you would like to evolve with the second one, is that you don't need to be half naked in the bank. So I heard in the Brazilian banks, you have to become half naked. You will elaborate a bit more about that. It's true.
So just the context of how Nubank was launched, our founder tried to enter a branch to open an account in Brazil. He's Colombian, not Brazilian. And the situation that he describes, it's feeling like naked, literally, because you need to remove all your metal belongings.
No guns in the bank, right?
No guns, no phone, not a watch, not a belt, anything. Sometimes you need to take your shoes off. It's like going through the airport, like literally going through the security controls at the airport. And there are situations that the alarms keeps ringing. So there was a picture that I didn't bring here, not to shock the audience, but literally, the man had to take the t-shirt off just to show I don't have a gun, let me enter this bank. So that's a bit of the context. Security, it's an issue in Brazil, definitely. So banks are aware of that and they put heavy security in the branches. So definitely situations like that, it was what drove our founder, David, to literally go and I want to launch something that is going to be transformational for a country that has a system and access like Brazil.
Yeah, I love that zero trust situation.
Zero trust
towards the depositors. Depositors have zero trust from the banks.
You have a
country.
liability. You need to prove.
Right.
Definitely.
Maybe we're quite fortunate that we can go into the branch office without taking off our
with your phones on your hands and everything.
Right. And also when this regulators introduce open finance, open banking policy, I think the response between the different banks were quite different. And do you see that Nubank had benefited or took advantage of the situation?
Yes, so open finance, it was definitely a moment that banks with longer history or the larger customer base could somehow be in disadvantage because they have more to share than to receive. And then what we felt about open finance, that's a really, really good opportunity to bring more data to Nubank, and we serve our customers even better because now we know their full financial lives, not only what we know from Nubank. We really, really embraced the agenda since the beginning. So the first team members, they were pretty much participating in regulatory groups to make sure that we could influence all the specifications that were being set in we started in 2020, I believe. I'm sure that in the end of 2020, we already had the team staffed to really act strongly in the regulation with the regulators to really influence. Those are the standards. That's what we should have. Yesterday, we just filed a proposal that got accepted by the central bank. They are going to make sure that all players implement that by a specific time. So it's an agenda that it has a lot of strategic power to us in terms of being transformational, serving the customers, and who knows, having the customers more and more using our app as we consolidate their financial lives fully at Nubank.
And your team, Open Finance team, was created from scratch, or you put together different experts from different parts of the bank?
Yes, so the core team, it's people that we got from other teams, like people that were hired at Nubank, and we formed a very small team in the beginning. But definitely we counted a lot with the experts at Nubank. So whenever we were talking about information security, we had our head of information security participating in some of the groups, cloud strategies, APIs. So we did count a lot with the internal expertises because we really wanted to have the best standards possible. And the more knowledge we brought to the table, the more respected we were by the other institutions and by the central bank. That it's really, I would say, our partners in that sense, in terms of we have an open conversation and we discuss a lot of the technical specifications. UX, it was another working group that we heavily invested. So we took the best that we had internally inside Nubank to make sure that we were defending our proposals or discussing proposals that were coming from other institutions as well.
Right. And judging from your presentation, you had very clear strategy for open finance, but did you have the strategy from the very beginning, or it was formed along the way with the response from the customer and response from the partners?
So what we are implementing right now, there is a thing about aggregation that I would say that it's traditional open finance. So we did a lot of research of what is happening in open finance around the world that we could replicate at Nubank. And then we adapted to our long-term strategy that hopefully it should become the only app our customers need. So what they need to really retire the other apps that they had and fully be at Nubank. They need to have all the visualizations of their accounts at Nubank. They need to move money. They need to be able to move money from the other accounts from the Nubank app. So those are the two pillars. Then when it comes to insights, I presented two insights, idle money and the overdraft one. That's us becoming the personal bankers for our customers. How we can do that at scale, collecting more and more data, really having a lot of data expertise to deliver personalized message to our customers. So it was something, we did some research and we thought what is connected to our strategy, and it's evolving over time. Like there are other ideas that I hope we implement this year, plan to implement this year, that are not the traditional ones from open finance. And the more we surprise the customer, we add value to the customers, the better. Just a detail that I didn't mention, customers in Brazil, if you ask them, what do you expect in terms of value return coming from open finance? They are going to say credit. I expect greater credit lines or credit conditions. So that's what they expect, only credit. Like if you increase my credit lines, I'm happy about it. If you give me a better rate when I hire a loan, that's what I expect. So everything that we are presenting to customers, it's innovation. It's something that they didn't know it's possible. It's something, I can see my Itaú account at the Nubank app. How come? What happened? That was open finance. So it's a concept that we are still developing with customers. And the more we present use cases and something that they see a lot of value, the better. And customer satisfaction of everything that I presented here, it's above 80%. We run surveys on a daily basis with our customers, and we scored more than 80%. Customers are very satisfied with those 4 things that I presented. Even the payments one that works half of the time, they're happy about it. It's not working, but they're happy. That's good news of the idea of it.
Right. And Taksan, looking at different open finance throughout the world, do you see some changes in trend, how they try to strategically adopt open finance?
So I named last year, 2023, as like the financial API 2.0 year because in many parts of the world, financial regulators had introduced some form of open banking regulation. But last year was the year of reform and revise. So, I mean, for many of us, like the change in the US had been very surprising because we always thought that, okay, maybe the Eurozone is so fast at making regulations, but the US does it in their own way and they kind of leave it for the market to decide what should go on. But even the US had rolled out a very like a mandatory kind of regulation to perform what open finance can mean for the US. And of course, I mean, even in the Eurozone, PSD2 didn't really roll out in the initial vision. I mean, it was kind of countered with a lot of resistance. So the large lesson that we have been learning for the past few years is regulation needs to be revised. And I think in Japan, I mean, the regulators are looking after the banking APIs, but of course, it's a bit more harder to roll out the actual revise of how it should be done. But since we've seen so many like phased in approach, I mean, I loved that, 4-phased change that Brazil is facing. I mean, the initial phase, I mean, Brazil kind of lagged far behind Japan. But in phase 2, you're now already here. And in phase 3, I mean, probably will be, far below what needed to be done. So I think this way of thinking that we need to phase in and we need a bit more public intervention with it. And making consensus just between the private parties is hard. I mean, I can tell this for 7 years I've been doing this. So we need some kind of public intervention. Of course, we don't want it to be super regulatory, but I think setting that kind of phase and steps and to-dos are becoming much more important. So that's probably my issue for this year. Yeah.
Right. And working on your open finance, you seem to build a partnership with a lot of players. And now I think it's shifted into a kind of an ecosystem. But can you explain a little bit of how your ecosystem grow and how your partnership have come to grow?
Yes, the Japanese FAPI Association is finally actually increasing the number of member companies. Probably the industry what will be called as a neobank in other countries are emerging as the actual users of banking APIs in this country. We used to think that, okay, API using companies are mainly accounting and personal finance, but that's not the norm right now. I mean, we've seen many other B2B commerce companies come into play. B2C banking software for foreigners come into play. And we've seen a rural area focused 商社, so like, industrial company that is rolling out banking API services. So, and I think that's the kind of an ecosystem I was actually looking for. I mean, we didn't just want to revise the existing companies, but we wanted to create some very new use cases. And in this country, especially use cases and showing that in a very promising way it's the number one story to change the consensus in this society. I mean, everyone asks us for what are the use cases, and we used to tell, okay, accounting services, lending, automated lending, and other services. But at the end of the day, that's something that could be imagined from myself will not be the answer. Something that is brought up by external entrepreneurs with very maybe niche but right ideas are probably the goal that our industry should be collecting. So I think we've been seeing some new breeds of those companies because some of the Japanese challenging traditional banks are opening up transactional APIs. So yeah, our organization, our FAPI organization is strongly promoting that kind of new innovations for the past 2 years, and we actually have a cheaper membership. Yes, for those kind of companies. So again, we actually do produce some very new ideas, which is actually connected to the banking industry.
Right. In case of Nubank, I think the ecosystem now has grown to a level where you can benefit from the value of an ecosystem. But can you explain a little bit more on that?
Just replying to your question and also comment something you said. Not what we think it's going to work for the customer always work. So we do a lot of test control. We have now 9 million customers. There are customers exposed to different things, and we collect the results and we learn and we iterate a lot. The account aggregation, we've been iterating this product for more than a year until we really get customers to love that product. Because what we thought it was going to work, it didn't work. One insight that we thought it was going to work, it didn't work. Communication, saying a specific message, it didn't work. So there is a lot of iteration with the customers that we need to perform to really understand what sticks to the customer, what type of information they want to receive and products, so on. So that's a long journey, a long journey of testing many things, putting many things in production, having an architecture that it's suitable to that we can easily just put a test in production and take it out, control the results really fast, statistical relevance, so on and so forth. So I didn't cover much of that, but there is a part of the team dedicating to only testing products with customers. The ecosystem in Brazil specifically quite large in terms of customer participation, data flowing, very granular data flowing, transactional data flowing, close to real time. The data needs to be updated in at least the last 5 minutes. So that's the quality of the data we are getting. We are actually filing proposals to have it literally real time, updated in seconds, because we are showing the customer their balances in our app. So if it is 5 minutes delayed, that's a lot. It's almost something that it's preventing us from going faster because it's not updated. I'm going to show you that you have $1,000, but you just perform a transaction. You actually had $900 and you can make a wrong decision. So the system is in a very good place. Central bank acting very strongly. But there is still issues with data quality, performance, so on and so forth. And we are internally developing capabilities in terms of fix what's not perfect, right? One thing that it's sure when you deal with data is not perfect. You need to find ways, you need to develop specific models that you can fix imperfect data. So kind of crossing different fields, a lot of data science is involved on that. So this is something that we see that it's important on our side to make the most of the system. But I would say that it's already a success. It's already getting traction. Customers like it. The number of customers we have, we are kind of getting organically, I would say it's less than 1 million, but definitely hundreds of thousands of new customers per month, giving their consent, more products joining. So everything looks very good, with the central bank being very in favor to that. Of course, something that always can change the system if there is a new people managing the central bank. Do they have a different vision than the current team? That could be something that kind of slows or put the system in an even better place, but so far positive system and really fostering innovation and speed.
Right. And as you accumulated data, I think you can be very creative in analyzing the data. which no banks in the past were thinking about. So I think you are now in the position where challenging the very innovative approach to your accumulated data.
Exactly. I mentioned credit underwriting, but definitely that's a very good data for fraud. Brazil and Mexico, unfortunately, are two countries that are known for financial schemes. So we can identify a lot of different behaviors and identify a fraudster inside Nubank at the acquisition model. We do have, I didn't mention, but we do have our marketplace inside our app where we have some product offers. I know what I can get as granular as Luciana made a purchase at a Nike store. So she might like sports. So why don't I offer her a coupon so she can use at my marketplace? So that's the power of data. That's all the things we can do with the data we are getting. There is a list of things we can definitely do with the data, coming as granular as it is coming right now.
Right. And we're just about to finish. So can you give us a final word for the audience? Advice on how to create the open finance ecosystem.
Definitely. So I mentioned, so it's really a pleasure to be here. Thanks to Authlete for bringing me here, inviting me for being here in Japan this week. It's really a good time to see different systems developing and meeting you all here. So open finance, I think that the first thing that it's important in open finance, set the right specifications. So whenever there is a new system developing, put the efforts fully on how the specifications are going to be defined. What are the standards? What is the UX that it's going to be delivered to customers? Pretty much most of what I showed of the UX is it's standards. All the banks need to communicate the customer in a certain way, that it's safe. That's the number of screens you need to have in each one of the operations. That's all defined by the central bank in Brazil, by the regulation. So launching open finance definitely goes into those very, very specific technical aspects to make sure that you are going to launch something that it's going to be successful. Scale is definitely something that we are suffering because there are limits of requests that we can perform per day. And to power all the use cases that we have, if we were to consume all the data, we would be going above the limits, but we put some intelligence in how we are consuming the data so that we don't go above the limits. And specifications, to write as clear as possible with specifications because there are different rooms for interpretation when it comes to data, mostly of the time. So we could see that fields that were supposed to have numbers, but they have actually letter, characters, things like that, because simple institutions have a different understanding of the specifications itself. And then it's a matter of get the system flowing, iterate a lot the products that you believe are going to be a big hit with the customers. Sometimes our hypotheses are completely wrong, and it's kind of unbelievable that the customers didn't like what we just exposed to them. So that's a system that it requires effort, like show something new to the customers, see how the customer is reacting, come back, what is preventing a customer from share the data, understand exactly what are their concerns. Security is one that concerns customers in Brazil, and we did a lot of communication about open finance being safe. You can trust, it follows all the safe protocols, so on and so forth. So it's really, really important to collect fast feedback from customers after you go through the specification parts.
So thank you very much for the two panelists.